But I think I also was having this inner conflict of, why is this wrong? Why am I being told this is wrong? Yes, it's in this book that I've been told that is the ultimate guidebook for everything, but it didn't feel congruent to what I was experiencing.
Right. And so have you had sex with a lot of guys?
Mm-hmm.
A lot, around, how many?
Oh, I don't know.
That many?
I don't know.
So many you can't remember
So
the
many
number?
that it doesn't matter to me.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Why so many?
Because I think that experiencing pleasure and sharing consensual sexual relations with another person is one of the best things in life.
Amazing.
Yes, guys, be warned, before you watch this video, you might want to vomit. Jesse is going to be interviewing a so-called sex therapist. This lady has gone cuckoo for Cocoa Pops as far as I'm concerned. Guys, watch this video. The reason why we post videos like this on Culture War is to fight things like this. This woke culture. We'll do our best with every video we post here to fight these things, to further protect our future generation, our children, and all our loved ones. If you don't subscribe to the channel yet, what are you waiting for? Hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell to get more videos like this. Without further ado, let's get straight into it.
Welcome to The Fallen State. I'm Jesse Lee Peterson. Today I want to talk about sexuality and identity. I have with me Georgia Hill, a sex therapist and a sexuality and relationship coach. First, I got to ask about the tattoos.
Okay.
So you have a bunch of them, and tell us about them.
So the ones that are probably the most visible are the ones on my arms here, and you can see they wrap around a little bit.
Yeah.
This is the state flower of Oregon, which is Oregon grape. I grew up in Oregon. I lived there for about the first 20 years of my life.
Oh, okay.
Moved back and forth a little bit.
What part of Oregon?
I grew up right outside of Portland.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
A little town called Beaverton. And I decided to get the California state flower, which is the California poppy. So it represents where I'm at now in my home. I consider California my home, and where I'm not planning on leaving.
And so how many do you have?
I think 13.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
My show is called The Fallen State. Do
Yes.
you believe that human beings are in a fallen state?
I would want to ask you specifically what you mean by that, because then I want to know if I agree or not.
They're falling away from what is right.
Mm-hmm.
They're falling away from God.
Mm-hmm. No, I don't believe that.
You do not believe that?
No,
and why not?
I come from a very conservative Christian background. I grew up in the church. I went to church 3 times a week. I was homeschooled. I was taught the pretty typical conservative, fundamental Christian beliefs.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
And I have really gone through my life and experienced a lot of things and really examined my own belief system and made choices that have made me incredibly happy. And none of that has to do with the church. So my personal opinion is that this idea that human beings are sinful, that they've fallen away from God, all of those things, I don't agree with it.
So were you raised by your father?
I was raised by both my parents.
By both
yes.
parents? And they both were Christians?
Yes.
You're no longer a Christian?
No.
And do you believe in God?
No.
You don't believe? Do you believe there is a God?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So the possibility is there.
Yeah, I think that there is certainly the possibility, but for me personally, I don't identify with that concept of some sort of greater power that's overseeing and managing humans' lives.
And so what made you turn away from Christianity? What happened that caused you to turn away?
It's been a long process. When I was 19, I went to a Christian college for 2 years. And it was a less conservative Christian structure than I had grown up in, because I had been raised in an environment that there was no wiggle room for any kind of questioning. I was taught to make decisions based on, this is what the Bible says, this is what God says, or this is what the pastor says, and so that's what we're going to do. So throughout my time at Christian college, I did start to kind of question some of the beliefs that I had been taught.
Right.
Because I was being presented with some different options, and I also grew up in a very small church, so there was also not a lot of diversity as far as the types of people that were there.
Oh, I see. You say that you used to associate sex with shame and restriction. Mm-hmm. Explain that.
Obviously, we've talked a little bit about how I grew up.
Right.
the conversations that we would have around sex were very implicit as opposed to explicit. So they were implied. There was a lot of implied, you're not going to have sex until you're married. It's only okay for a man and woman to have sex, and only within the confines of a marriage.
Right.
You know, things that are too sexy, that's sinful. You know, dressing a certain way, that's sinful. Loving many people, or having sex with many people, or having a relationship with someone of the same gender, or having, you know, relationships that involve more than two people. I just grouped it all under this category of, oh, we don't talk about that.
Right.
And so that idea of shame.
Yeah.
And also the idea of, even though all of that is shameful, there is this one tiny acceptable aspect of it. But we're not going to talk about that unless you're married, and you're married to a man.
See. And so, are you having sex?
Yeah.
And at what age did you start to have sex?
Right around 21.
And what made you do it then?
I had been experimenting in other ways. I hadn't had any kind of penetrative sex at this point,
Right.
but I had, you know, experimented with oral sex, or, you know, manual sex and making out and those kind of things. And I think there was a part of me that was like, well, I've done all of this, I might as well just do this too.
Yeah.
I think that's a very common reaction. But I think I also was having this inner conflict of, why is this wrong? Why am I being told this is wrong? Yes, it's in this book that I've been told that is the ultimate guidebook for everything, but it didn't feel congruent to what I was experiencing.
Right. And so, have you had sex with a lot of guys?
Mm-hmm.
A lot, around, how many?
Oh, I don't know.
That many?
I don't know.
So many you can't remember
So
the
many
number?
that it doesn't matter to me.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Why so many?
Because I think that experiencing pleasure and sharing consensual sexual relations with another person is one of the best things in life.
Amazing. And so, have you had sex with girls too?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
And how many girls?
No, I don't count. I don't think there's any reason to count.
So how do you find these people to have sex with?
Oh, it's many different ways. I mean, over the years, I meet people through friends. I meet people in social situations, on the internet, on apps,
Oh,
you
I
know,
see.
all sorts of ways.
Who do you prefer, girls or guys?
I identify as queer, and my personal definition of queer, many people have many different definitions, as well as using it in a derogatory way, is that I am attracted to people, and I'm attracted to energy and chemistry. And so for me, it's not about their genitals or their gender expression or their gender identity. It's about that person and who I'm attracted to. I tend to be more attracted towards men that were born men and identify as men. But I have found myself attracted to lots of different kinds of people and have enjoyed experiencing them. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So what's the difference for you in having sex with a man as opposed to a woman?
Oh man, that's like asking the difference between, you know, one guy and another guy. To me, every experience is different.
Do you judge other people?
I think we all do.
How about you?
Do I judge other people?
Yes.
Yeah, I think I do.
You do
At
judge.
times, yeah.
But you don't like to be judged. Why do you judge?
Oh, I try not to. I actively try not to. I try to work on that part of myself. But I think that it's something that we all can't escape to a certain level because we've been socialized to put people in boxes. We've been socialized to try to figure out by looking at someone, is that a man or a woman? What are they doing over there?
So are your parents aware that you're having sex with boys and girls and many guys and many girls? And
Well, they will be now if they watch this.
and how do you feel about them knowing this?
You know, I've come to a place in my life where my authenticity and my honesty is kind of one of the most important things to me.
Yeah.
Because I've fought so hard for it. And I have come to a place where I'm willing to have some of those conversations. So I actually started researching and looking into the BDSM world, which would be, you know, whips and chains, dominatrix, that kind of
Oh.
stuff. But essentially it's, you know,
Right.
bondage, discipline, sadism, masochism. It could talk about dominance, submission. So I started researching it, and again, I didn't really know much about it. I was, you know, my concept of it was what we might see in the media, you know, some woman in a leather cat suit with a whip whipping some
Right.
guy. Or
That's
whatever.
an image I have now.
Yeah. Oh man, you'd be surprised how many people don't look like that, though.
Really?
Believe me.
So
Oh yeah.
were you the one that got whooped or or did the whooping?
Well, to start off, I wasn't doing anything. I thankfully said, you know what, I need to find the people that know about this. I need to get connected
Right.
to a community. Don't just start hitting people with random things. And I started doing some reading. I started getting connected with some communities online, and I ended up getting into that community there in Seattle. And I think what I really learned about myself was that when I allowed myself to be authentic in what I wanted and what I enjoyed, that it was incredibly fulfilling. I think that it also gave me the opportunity to have freedom in my other parts of my life, not just my sexual life.
Right. So did you get beat, or did you beat others?
I like it all.
So you like getting beat or whooped?
There is an element of it, yeah. So the concept of BDSM is that, number one, you talk about consent. You talk about willingly entering into this arrangement.
So what has happened to you in that? What have you gone through? Lifestyle.
I've experimented with a lot of different things. It's not something that I do regularly, but it is something that is a part that I identify as part of who I am.
So like what?
There's all sorts of things you can talk about.
What do you like though?
There's spanking, there's flogging, caning, you talk about face slapping, you can talk about the psychological aspect of it, which is humiliation and dominance and submission. There's a lot of different elements.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And so you like being treated that way? It's a turn on?
Within that context, yes.
It's a turn on?
Yeah. In my life, day to day, no.
Right.
I'm a very, I'm very self-assured. I have a very strong personal identity, and I also demand a lot of respect from the people in my life.
And so,
but there's a certain freedom to entering into a consensual situation where you are agreeing, and you have an agreement and a trust and a bond with whoever you're playing with. We use the word play to talk about engaging in this behavior. And it's an opportunity to really step into a realm that is a suspension of reality. You say, okay, here's the agreements. Here's my consent for you to do this, that, this, or that. And granted, you can stop it at any time with a safe word.
So let me ask, does the pain feel like love, or does it feel like sex, or does it feel like what?
There's so much more to BDSM than pain.
Right, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
So when you're being treated this way, does it feel like love, sex, or what? What are you getting from it? What type of satisfaction?
I would say that that's a good question, because there's so many different elements to talk about, but I believe for me, a lot of times it is a psychological and physical release. And it's not just about sex. There's many times that I've engaged in these kind of behaviors that have nothing to do with sex. And it's a moment of connection with someone. It's a moment of sharing something with someone that's really intimate.
So at the time that this is happening, do you feel that this person care about you, love
absolutely.
you, and that's why they're treating you that way?
Yeah. It's
It's
an agreement
to me.
Yeah.
And so have you been beat by, have you been beat by, so have this happened, have men and women done this to you?
Yeah, I've played with a lot of different kinds of people, yeah.
Who do you prefer to treat you this way, men or women?
I prefer to have chemistry with someone and have a connection with someone, so I really don't have a preference.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
And so if a person is not that way, are you attracted to them?
Not, what way, I'm sorry?
Like believe in beating you, slapping you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Are you still attracted to that kind of a man that's not into that?
Yeah.
And what attracts you to that kind of man that's not like that?
There have been lots of people I've dated that I've shared sexual experiences with that have no interest in that whatsoever.
Right.
And so for me, when I find someone that does share that, it's one element of our relationship. And so ultimately, it starts with respect and trust and building that relationship, and then this might be a part of it as well. If it isn't a part of it, we still have that respect and trust in building the relationship.
So you decided to become a sex therapist. Why?
I was at a point in my life where I was deciding to make some changes. I had been working in kind of a traditional office corporate job, and it really wasn't right for me. It just didn't feel right. It was very unfulfilling. And actually my best friend, she's like, I think you should think about being a therapist. You should be a sex therapist. She's like, you're really good at talking with people. You're very open and understanding and non-judgmental. But on top of that, I'd always had an interest in sex, and not necessarily engaging in sex, but just the whole aspect of human sexuality and gender expression, and I've always been very fascinated by it and human behavior. So I started researching programs, and I actually found a program in Philadelphia, and I went out there. So I did a master's program, and throughout that program I actually kind of explored more of what I wanted to really focus on, and I kind of have honed it down.
And so do you have an office where people come to you, or and what do you do as a sex therapist? What actions do you take?
This is how I explain it to people, because I think a lot of times people think they hear sex therapist and they're like, ooh, that must be sexy. And I was like, no, not really. So you go to therapy, or you go to a life coach, and you talk about life. You talk about stuff that's challenging for you. You talk about things you want to change. You talk about things that have been difficult in the past you're trying to work through. Same thing when I see my clients. But it has some sort of element to it that's either about their sex lives, about their sexuality, about their gender, and that could be even just part of what I work with.
Oh, okay. Do you have sex with the clients sometimes?
No.
So you don't demonstrate how they should do it?
No.
Oh, I see.
No. So there are people that provide those services that might be more instructional or might be more educational, and that's not necessarily something that I do.
What kinds of people do you work with?
I work with individuals and couples. So I don't work with any kind of family units or kids or teenagers or anything like that. It's either people coming in to work through some sort of issues of gender or sexuality, or wanting to explore something, whether as a couple or as an individual. Or there's someone that kind of falls under one of those categories already, and they want to come to someone that gets them, someone that's going to understand what they're talking about, someone that is going to help them work through maybe some of those issues and understand the particular challenges that they're facing.
And so do you work with rich people, poor people, middle class, of all races? And
I work with anyone that can pay me.
That's right.
As long as it feels like a good fit. I mean, granted,
of course.
It has to
and
be
so
the right
do you
fit.
have, you personally, I forgot to ask this earlier, do you like group sex as well?
I have experienced group sex, yeah.
And how many in this group?
I mean, I don't have a preference. It's like, it depends on.
It could be 100.
Oh, I can't say I've done that. I really can't. I don't even know. Maybe 10.
10 people in the same sex.
Yeah, just like in a room. Yeah, I mean, and again, it's, and when you engage in these kind of activities or parties or clubs or whatever you go to, it's not a free-for-all. There's always this element of consent, and it's knowing people, and it's having conversations about sexual safety, and making sure that the experience is beneficial and it's positive for everyone involved.
Are you concerned about diseases or getting pregnant or any of those things?
I'm always concerned about sexual health, and I think that's a conversation that everyone should have with anyone they're having sex with, whether they're in a monogamous relationship or not.
But they might not tell you the truth.
Absolutely. Well, anyone can lie.
But you take that risk anyway, right?
I take that risk because I believe that it's a calculated risk, it's an educated risk, and it's also something that I'm willingly entering into. So I take the precautions that I need to in engaging in these behaviors, but there's certainly a lot of danger in the world.
Yes.
And there's one of my favorite quotes, actually something that Helen Keller said. Life is either a daring adventure or nothing. Security does not exist in nature, nor do the children of men as a whole experience it. Avoiding danger is no safer in the long run than exposure.
I gotta ask you this, and time is going by.
Go ahead.
Your Twitter bio says, "I am a sex positive, gender affirming, queer affirming, kink competent, sexuality and relationship coach." That's a lot to be in one person.
Yep. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I could just use the word sex positive, because the term sex positive really just talks about a positive view of sexual behavior, but also that there isn't an element of shame.
What does gender affirming mean?
I believe that there are many different kinds of gender. There's people that move throughout that spectrum. There's people that are very firmly one gender or the other. So I want people to know that I'm affirming of whatever they might be going through or whatever that they express themselves as.
And what does queer affirming mean?
LGBTQ affirming. So if you're gay, lesbian, bi, transgender, anything on that spectrum, again, sexuality is a spectrum, that I'm affirming of that, and I'm affirming of that person's experience, and I'm not going to shame them or try to change them.
Do you like masculine men or masculine women or feminine women and feminine men?
I like it all.
Oh, you like it all. Okay.
Again, for me, and I think that I'm.
But you seem ladylike, you know, the way you carry yourself. I would think you would want a masculine man.
Not necessarily, because I don't ascribe to traditional gender roles, and I don't ascribe to traditional gender expression necessarily.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
And the last one is, you also say you are highly kink competent. And explain that.
So, as we've talked about kink, BDSM, highly kink competent means that I am well versed in and well educated in the terms, the behaviors, the different things that people might experience or might enjoy within that community. And I also am aware of the risks involved, you know, the precautions that people can take. So it's not just that I'm like, oh, I have this general understanding of it. I'm very well versed in it.
And could you live without sex?
Hell no.
You can't.
No, I don't think anyone should. I think it's a choice that you can make in the same
Right.
way that I believe that, you know, there's many choices you can make, but personally that would not be a choice I would make.
And do you plan or would like to get married one day?
I have been married, actually.
You have been married? And then what happened? To a man?
That's part of the complicated situation that I would rather not talk about.
Do you have children?
No.
Would you like children?
No.
To have children? No children.
No.
How do you see yourself? How do you see you?
I see a complex, complicated, passionate, and ambitious woman that enjoys her life and makes mistakes sometimes and doesn't apologize for the choices that I make and try to take responsibility and grow.
And so are you completely satisfied and happy and content with you?
I really am.
You are?
I mean, I try to always be learning and growing, and I try to listen to the people around me, and I try to understand different points of opinion and different views, because certainly I was a very different person 10 years ago. I was a very different person 3 years ago.
What is love?
Love. The definition of love. Romantic love, friendship love,
Well, just
parental love, just love.
Yeah.
Just love. I think that love is the desire to self-sacrifice for another person, but also not demand, but expect that same in return.
Very interesting. My final question.
Yes,
Did you have fun?
absolutely.
I enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you. Thank
I
you for
wish you
having
well.
me. Thank you. You too.